initials.
Well, we're going to open today's meeting. I'd like to welcome you all to a joint meeting of Multnomah County, Washington County, and Clackamas County Board of Commissioners. This is a time and place designated by the Secretary of State for filling the vacancy for Oregon Senate District 19. I am Jim Bernard, Clackamas County Chair, and I have been designated by the Secretary of State to chair this meeting. I added one part to the script. Please turn off your cell phone ringer. Ken? I'd like to start out by asking you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there some commissioners joining us by phone?
Yes. Commissioner Terry here.
Okay, we're going to take
Rogers.
We're going to take a roll. I was just checking. First, I'd like to introduce our staff to today's meeting. Our clerk is Kevin Moss. This is the fourth one of these we've done, so he is for hire. Our legal advisors today are Clackamas County Counsel Stephen Madcore, Multnomah County Attorney Jenny Madcore. Welcome. Kevin Moss will call the roll for all three boards, starting with Multnomah County.
Chair Kafori.
Here.
Commissioner Myron. Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Stegman.
Here.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson. Chair Dyke from Washington County. Commissioner Schouten.
Here.
Commissioner Malinowski.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Terry.
Here.
Chair Bernard.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Humbertson.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
And Commissioner Savas.
Here. Thank you, Kevin, and before we discuss the procedure here today, I'd like to welcome the three nominees chosen by the precinct committee persons of the Senate District 19 to replace former Senator Richard Devlin. They are Ms. Claudia Black, Mr. Rob Wagner, and Miss Daphne Weisham. It has been decided that these three nominees will speak in alphabetical order. I'll now outline the procedure for today's meeting that were highlighted on the approved agenda provided to the Commission from all three counties prior to this meeting. In a few minutes, I'll open up the meeting for public comment period. This section will be limited to 45 minutes in total. During this section, members of the public who have already signed up may come up and provide comments for up to 1 minute each. Clerk Moss, do we still have spots available on the sign-up sheet?
We do indeed, Mr. Chair.
We do indeed. So if you are interested, you need to sign up now or forever hold your peace. If there's, okay, so there are still spots. Members of the public should start their comments by providing their name and the city. I'd also like to ask when a member of the crowd agrees with what a member of the public is saying, please raise your hand. This will give commissioners a more complete picture of the public's sentiment. Once public comments finish, we'll move to opening statements. Each nominee shall have an opportunity to make up to a 2-minute open statement. The nominee will come up to the table one at a time as called. Once the opening statements are completed, the nominees, except for Ms. Black, will be escorted out of the room so as not to hear the questions being asked during the question and answer section until it's time to come before the commission. This action is being taken to ensure a fair and open, transparent process. After each nominee completes their presentation, they may remain in the room to hear other nominees. I ask the nominees and the audience to please use the honor system and not text message or email the questions being asked to the other nominees out of the room. No semaphore either. When it is a nominee's respective turn, they will participate in the question-answer session. Each nominee will be given up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Each county has decided to pose 2 questions to the candidates, so there will be a total of 6 questions. This is not a public hearing, so no testimony will be received after the question-and-answer session. Once all question sessions are completed, each candidate will again be called up to the table one at a time and will be asked to make a 2-minute closing statement. These will be made in alphabetical order. Clerk Moss will keep time for all the answers and the statements. We will show a yellow card when the candidate has 30 seconds left and a red card when the time is up. At the conclusion of the interview, we'll recess if needed following that, and we'll begin opening deliberation. During deliberation, commissioners are free to speak as they wish. Once deliberations are completed, I will call for a vote. The vote will be made in alphabetical order regardless of the county, any with the chair. As the chair of the meeting, I will go last. As provided by the Secretary of State, each county has different weights in their votes. The votes are weighed to reflect the share of voters or electors in District 19 living within each county. Clerk Moss, what is the weight of each county vote?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Clackamas County has 11 votes per commissioner, Multnomah County has 4.6 votes, and Washington County has 3.6 votes per commissioner. 4.4 for Multnomah and 3.6 for Washington. My apologies.
All right, thanks. State law says that a plurality is needed to appoint. So keep that in mind. It's not a majority that needed, but a plurality. Now, what did the sentence before say? Oh, the person who gets the most votes will be appointed. Clerk Moss, what is a plurality minimum? Plurality.
Excuse me, Chair, can you repeat the question?
What is the plurality minimum to win? Hey, it's on here. I didn't write it.
Just 1 second. We're just missing a Multnomah County commissioner.
Sherry Myron.
Oh, okay. So we got 14 plus 55. Okay. The plurality is 31 votes.
Okay, thank you. So some more people have come in. Why don't you, make sure that they've been on the roll.
Commissioner Myron?
Here.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Here.
That's it? Thank you. If no one receives a plurality, that is, if 2 or more candidates are tied in a vote, and I'll call for another vote at that time. We'll keep doing that until we have a winner. I may call for additional deliberation if plurality does not emerge. With that, I'm going to open up the meeting for the public comment period. This section will be limited to 45 minutes in total. During this session, members of the public will have, who have already signed up, and if you haven't, you better do it now, may come up and provide comment for up to 1 minute each. Commenters should start by providing their name and city. Again, I'll ask that when a member of the crowd agrees with a member of the public is what the public is saying, please raise your hand. This gives commissioners a bigger picture of public sentiment. I'd like to emphasize to the speaking public that you do not need to take up the whole minute. We'll have a hook to pull you away. We have a microphone here and right there. So with that, we'll start the public comment period. And Kevin has the list and will be calling people up.
Okay. Evis Morrow?
Why don't you call three so
Yeah.
they can line up?
Carol Greeno and Mohammed Al-Nouri. Stand.
Oh, okay. It was above my head.
Why do we have the table there?
Short jokes.
Oh.
Thank you. My name is Everest Morrow from Portland, and I'm here today to tell you why I support Rob Wagner for Senate District 19. Here's what I look for in an elected official. I want someone who is smart enough to listen, ask the right questions, has good natural intelligence, is willing to learn, is compassionate, caring, approachable, determined, can negotiate, compromise, and drive a hard bargain. The person that I want to vote for has to be a fighter and a champion for the causes they believe in and can add to that list of causes. They have to believe in their mission and the idea that success will come with hard work and hope. I want someone for the long term, someone who knows it won't be easy and is still willing to do the work. They must have the support of their family because this is a tough gig. Rob has all the qualities I look for in a candidate. He has the knowledge, experience, and reverence for the position. He has a desire to do good for others and has for the many years I've known him. He is the best person for this position, and he will represent the constituents of this district well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next.
Thank you for the chance to talk to you today. My name is Dr. Carol Greeno. I'm a clinical psychologist from Tualatin, Oregon. Excuse me, I'm a House District Leader in House District 37 and serve on the Washington County Behavioral Health Council. In choosing who to speak for today, I had three criteria. First, who had experience in the legislature and multiple levels of government who could hit the ground running. Second was the candidate's experience in working in areas connected to three major funding streams in the legislature: public safety, physical and mental health, and education. Third, did the candidate represent an underrepresented demographic? Rob Wagner is a valuable spokesperson for education, and his leadership in this and other areas would be welcome. However, I'm speaking for Claudia Black today. You know her qualifications in the area of public safety and health. In addition, she's a highly qualified woman. The current makeup of our Senate doesn't reflect the gender balance of Oregon. I would happy to see this balance change. Thus, I'm speaking for Claudia today. Thank you.
I'm going to try to put an alarm on it. And by the way, you guys are all going to have extremely tired arms by the time we're done.
Good
Okay,
afternoon.
go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Mohammed Ali Ajuri. I am from Beaverton, Oregon. Dear respected commissioners, thank you for allowing me to be here. It's my pleasure and honor to be here to speak on behalf of Mr. Rob Wagner. Don't have anything written out, but you're going to hear about really great things about Rob from folks here in the room, but I want to focus on a couple of things that are really close and dear to me personally. I was really impressed with Rob's ability to be inquisitive and really inclusive in his wanting to understand his constituents and what they're going through. And being a member of the traditionally underrepresented community, I was really impressed when Rob asked me specifically about things I participated in my own community. And a story that I'd like to share for Father's Day. One year, or this past year actually, his gift from his family, he requested that they join him at one of our interfaith events at our community center out in Tigard. And he brought his whole family and really was focused on learning more about what the community is dealing with as a whole. This is before all this was happening. And so I just thought that it's really impressive that he would want to take the extra step to learn about a community that he traditionally hasn't maybe been part of that specific community center. So I wanted to share that with you. And then the other thing I want to share is the story about a student that they took him from Iraq and how well he fit in that family coming from across the world. So I feel he's representative of all communities in this area, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next three.
Next, we have Dwayne Jerner, Savannah Jensen, and Emily Textera.
Who's ever up first, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Savannah Jensen, and I'm a nurse, and I'm also a Tualatin resident. I'm representing the Oregon Nurses Association and our endorsement for Rob Wagner for Senate District 19. After an in-depth interview process with local nurses and member activists, ONA is confident that Rob will advocate for nurses and the patients that we serve through supporting policies that ensure access to paid leave, invest in public education, and expand access to affordable health care. Rob clearly understands the connection between working conditions and patient outcomes and will protect nurses by ensuring payment parity for advanced practice nurses and reducing the growing threat of violence in healthcare settings. Like nurses, Rob understands that the health of a community is made up of more than just what happens at the patient's bedside. And ONA believes that for his values and character, Rob Wagner is the candidate best suited to fill Senator Devlin's remarkable legacy and represent our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Emily Texera. I live here in District just down the street in Westland. I'm a mother, a wife, a small business owner, and the local group lead for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Growing up, my father was an avid hunter. After college, I went to work for the Department of Defense. When I left the DoD, it was to marry my husband, who's a senior law enforcement officer of 19 years. We have firearms in our home, stored securely, locked, unloaded, with ammo stored separately, and I've spent my whole life around guns and responsible gun owners and have incredible respect for both, which is why I know gun safety and gun violence prevention legislation are of the utmost importance to me, my family, and our community. Rob Wagner's continued commitment to public safety, including common sense gun legislation, is why I'm here speaking in support of him, and I urge you all to appoint him to be our next senator. Thank you.
Thank you. You had a third name?
I did. Dwayne.
Why don't you call two more?
Will indeed, Mr. Chair. Sarah Pocklington and Frank Goulart.
Good afternoon. My name is Dwayne Not the Rock Johnson. I'm taking time off from my illustrious career to come here and speak before you today. I'm president of Globe 3 Ventures, an innovation and entrepreneurship-focused community and economic development consultancy. We work with government, education, business, philanthropy, and community organizations on initiatives to bring social and economic equity to communities. As a member of the State STEM Investment Council, Greater Portland 2020 Steering Committee, and, well, many other organizations, we are focused on connecting people with the opportunities that are available. I spent the last 12 years supporting organizations, working with our talent pipeline, and Rob has been a wonderful champion of bringing more opportunities to a greater population than before. Rob is intelligent, capable, deeply committed to all Oregonians having knowledge, skills, and opportunities to prosper. He's quick on his feet, acts responsibly, and always with integrity. He understands the legislative landscape and is a champion of education, innovation, and business policies that we need for our communities to thrive. He's a bridge builder and an equity champion who provides and brokers relationships between individuals and groups that might not otherwise exist. Having served, well, I'll skip to the end here. He's fully engaged and a selfless leader, and I'm glad to call him my friend. And I think he'll make a wonderful state senator. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Sarah Pocklington. I live in Lake Oswego, and I'm a senior director in our financial governance and controls group at Nike. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I am here to ask you to appoint Rob Wagner for State Senate District 19. I have the great pleasure of serving on the Lake Oswego School Board with Rob, and it is in this capacity that I have come to know Rob as an ardent and passionate supporter of our public education system. It is also in this capacity that I have come to understand that the single biggest risk to our public education system is a lack of stable and adequate school funding allocated by our state legislature. As a finance leader at one of our state's largest employers, it is critically important to me that we have leaders at the state level that can drive innovative solutions to lead our kids into their future. I have no doubt that Rob is the best candidate to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, after Mr. Goulart, we have Grayson Dempsey, Franklin Roberts, and Jamie Rodriguez.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Frank Goulart. I teach at Portland Community College in math, and also am president of our Faculty and Academic Professionals Union there. Have been involved there for the last 30 years, and I've known Rob for approximately the last 20 years. Rob has been highly effective at the state capitol and locally with our locals, our union locals throughout the state of Oregon, in being very progressive, an advocate, and his integrity shines through like no other I've ever met. His grasp of the facts and the details at the state capitol and the people that work there have been outstanding. I have seen it firsthand for many, many years as I've lobbied down there as well. In my current role as volunteer commissioner in the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, I still see remnants of Rob when I talk to various legislators and high-level officials in the state capitol. It's without hesitation, I heartily recommend Rob Wagner to take the esteemed seat of Senate District 19 for our state of Oregon and for all Oregonians. Thank you for your time and your listening.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Grayson Dempsey. I'm a resident of Portland, Oregon. As someone who has spent my entire career fighting for women's reproductive rights, including access to abortion care, it is my pleasure to offer my strong personal endorsement of Rob Wagner. Rob has shown himself to be a leader in our community through his many years of public service and advocacy, and most recently in his role of Lake Oswego School Board member. He has worked tirelessly to uplift pro-choice values, such as the importance of access to health care and comprehensive sexuality education. In everything that he does, Rob works to be a true ally and champion for the most vulnerable Oregonians, and I know that in his role as senator, he will not only represent his constituents well, but will be a strong voice for proactive, equitable policies for all Oregonians. I look forward to working with him in this new role and hope that you will join me in supporting Rob Wagner for Senate District 19.
Thank you.
My name is Dr. Franklin Roberts. I am from Portland Community College. I'm a Navy veteran, and I've been in Oregon for over 20 years. And it was my honor when Rob asked me to speak to you here today. I just want to say that Rob is willing to put in the time and effort and energy necessary to represent the people in the district and to do what needs to be done in order to get those things accomplished. As a veteran, as someone who teaches in the community college system, I believe that Rob best represents the good things about Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Jaime Rodriguez from Hillsborough. I work at Portland Community College's Workforce Development Department at Willow Creek. I've known Rob for about 15 years. And I can't say enough about him, and without having to repeat all the good things they've already said about Rob, I just want to give you an example of what Rob has done over the 15 years that I've known him and his development for people of color in the process legislatively. I worked at PC's Veterans Resource Center for 1 year, academic year 13-14, and at that time, the veterans weren't getting a fair share in registration. I talked to Rob. He showed me the process. As many years of experience as the director of political action at AFT Oregon, he showed me the process, guided me through on how to get passage for veterans done. Priority registration was very important, and it took some time, but we got it through, and thanks to Rob and his guidance, it really helped me develop myself as someone who can advocate, much like Rob does, for the inclusion of people of color in the process legislatively. In Rob Wagner, you are going to get somebody who's tireless, who has a passion for education, who does his best in advocating for all levels of education from K-12 to higher ed. Without a doubt, you're going to need somebody who's up and ready to run on Monday, less than a week, and Rob will be that person. So thank you for this time. And again, Rob Wagner for SD 19.
Okay, next we have Stephanie, followed by Maxine, followed by Emma.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Colbreth. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. I spent 8 years on active duty, and I currently run the Rock Creek Veterans Resource Center. I first met Rob as a student at Portland Community College when he asked me to speak on behalf of HB 4023, which was passed in 2014, and it provides vet success on campus to multiple locations. At my current location, this program provides 25 peer mentors. By facilitating stable employment and connection with the veteran community, our students that are advocates have an 87% rate of graduation and transfer to a 4-year institution. None of this would be possible without Rob Wagner. He has advocated on every level he possibly can for student veterans in a way that I am in awe of. In addition to this, he's advocated for many other pieces of legislation for the veteran population. He's successfully encouraged the population of younger veterans to get involved and go testify at the state level, which can be very difficult. I'm testifying for Rob to be appointed to the state senate because he's one of the most upstanding individuals I've ever had the pleasure of working with on the military or the civilian side. He is morally and ethically upstanding. And I encourage you all to give him your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Emma Calloway. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and I'm here today to ask you to support Rob Wagner for Senate District 19. I'm on my personal time today. When I started as an advocate for college students as a young professional, Rob was one of the first people in the Oregon State Capitol to support other lobbyists who were trying to make it in the field. He was incredibly welcoming to me, and I've seen him bring other women along throughout his entire career, of something on which I'm very grateful. When I had the chance to work for Rob at Portland Community College, I jumped at the chance to work for someone who is dedicated to education, would be a strong boss, and would help kind of mentor folks through the process. And as an employer, Rob made sure that our staff was devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion, adding areas in my schedule to work on issues such as gender-inclusive spaces, multi-gender restrooms, DACA advocacy. Rob also personally lives his inclusive values. From the very beginning of the hiring process, he supported me through, I have a lot of dyslexia and an encoding deficiency. He changed the way that the hiring practices were done, gave me extended time in order to allow me to be able to show my best self in that process, and he lived that the entire way through my time working for him. And I did want to also add that I believe that Rob really lives out his values in the way that he thinks about diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a queer woman, he has supported me and my family's needs the way that he would with any family. And I think that that's a really special gift and something that I haven't experienced with every employer, but I do think is important about Rob. I think Rob will make an excellent senator. You've heard a lot about that today. But he'll make an excellent statesman for all the reasons that I think are quite personal. And as politics are local, politics are also personal. And I hope you take that into account today as you listen to our stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Maxine Bacoup, Mary, and...
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Masen Boub. I am from Lake Oswego, but originally I'm from Senegal, West Africa. I am a recent citizen. It will be my first election I will have to vote, and I've known Rob for 9 years now, and I am the principal of the Lake Oswego French School. By the way, Rob speaks French, so if you will appoint a senator that can go around the world, represent America. And I am finishing my doctoral degrees at Portland State. I work on equity and social justice that I taught there too. I think if we see the state of Oregon's education system, it's in a dire need of help and support, and I think a person like Rob, who works hard in the Lake Oswego School District.
Whoever's talking right now,
and
talk a little louder, the mic's not picking them up.
Oh, sorry, I say, should I?
Don't start over.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, the situation in Oregon, we all know the state of our education, and we need people like Rob Wagner, who showed his leadership at Portland Community College, Lake Oswego School District, and in many areas that I work in education, I have met Rob advocating for better education. So I'm calling you and ask you to appoint him. He is the best candidate ever. Thank you.
All right, Mary Pito, Paul Spindle, and Vincent Kim.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Pivito, and I'm very honored to be here to be able to speak in support of Claudia Black for Senate District 19. I first met Claudia in 2013 when I, as a citizen advocate, had the audacity to go to Salem with the hopes that the state legislature would pass a bill to modernize industry permit standards in Oregon. Claudia took me under her wing in no official capacity, and not because I represented any powerful interest group, but because she knew that what I was asking for was the right thing to protect the most vulnerable in our state who had no voice. I wonder, after 2 years of Cleaner Air Oregon in the wake of the discovery of heavy metals contamination, if the energy, resources, and heartache might have been avoided if we could have prevailed earlier with our preventative measures. Claudia is a rare individual. I've learned in the subsequent years of continuing to work on state policy that the legislature is not a place for rigid ideology. It is a place for high principles, authenticity, integrity, and honesty. Claudia Black is that person. She works hard for what is right and important for Oregon, and we need more people like her, not to mention more women, in our state legislature. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paul Spindle. I'm from West Linn, Oregon. I think you have a wonderful opportunity here in the next couple hours to make a decision to replace Senator Devlin. And I've heard so many wonderful things about Rob, and that's great. And I've gotten an opportunity to meet him over the past couple months and agree with so much of what I've heard. I've known Daphne Weisham for years and would suggest that as people get to know her, they would realize that her values and her behavior and her actions are no different than Rob's. As I would say in the time that I've gotten to know Claudia, what a wonderful problem you have is to have three tremendously qualified people running for this. What saddens me is the process that I understand has gone on for years, which is pretty much a rubber stamp for whoever receives the most votes from the PCPs. And I would suggest that it's an opportunity for you guys to get to know the three candidates as well as you can. These three finalists, if you will, have been brought forward in what I understand is an equal now opportunity to encourage you to select them. I would encourage that and again, honor the fact that we have three wonderful candidates that we can all support as we go forward in this district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Vincent Kim. I live in Lake Oswego. I've known Rob Wagner for over 30 years now. I grew up here in Clackamas County, where I attended the public schools. I went away to college and moved to a small city called San Francisco to pursue a career as an entrepreneur and venture capital investor in startup companies. After having been away now for 25 years, my wife and I and 3 kids moved back a year and a half ago. It's good to be home. Our elementary school kids attend Hallinan Elementary just down the road from here. Having grown up in the area and now raising a family here, my family and I are invested in the well-being and prosperity of this community. With a commitment to education, inclusive communities, smart growth, and jobs, we think this area will become one of the most desirable places in the country for people to live, work, and raise a family. I can tell you that Rob is a person of high integrity, intelligence, and commitment to the public interest. Rob is one of the most dedicated people I know when it comes to issues of social justice, fairness, and equity. I know Rob cares deeply about the well-being of our community and our state, and that's why I'm here today to express my support for Rob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Connie Lee, Glenda Douglas, and Lisa Ortiz.
Public speaking's not my favorite. Good afternoon, Commissioners. There's been talk about who will fit in better with the culture that currently exists in Salem. Before I discuss that culture, I want to be clear that it matters not one whit to me or most of your constituents who will fit in best in Salem. As a matter of fact, I find that to be a counter-endorsement. Who is in Salem currently? Although women represent 51% of the state of Oregon, more than 73% of the state Senate is male. Fitting into that culture matters not one whit to me. I am not saying that every woman is better than any man. Those of you who know me and are aware of my staunch support of Senator Bernie Sanders in the 2016 presidential election, where I served as a delegate for him to the National Convention, can attest to that. On December 29th, in an IPA, that's Independence for Progressive Action, forum, all 7 candidates attended, along with 82 community members, and the membership of IPA voted and overwhelmingly endorsed 2 candidates, Claudia Black and Daphne Weisham. I stand here today not just as the chair of one of the most influential progressive organizations in Clackamas County, but also as a woman, a Latinx, a mother, and as a grassroots activist and a lesbian and a progressive, and urge you to make the bold choice and choose one of the 2 infinitely qualified women to serve as SC19's new senator to replace Senator Devlin. Be part of the change that puts Oregon women at the 30% mark of the state Senate on its way to 51%. Thank you.
Glenda Douglas or Lisa Ortiz? Oh, that was Lisa. Okay. Next, Christian Calzador and Barbara Ross.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Barbara Ross, and I'm from Portland, and I'm a retired school board member, I'm a retired county commissioner, and I'm a retired state representative. I'm here to support Claudia Black. I want to tell you about her personal characteristics that I think would make her just an outstanding senator. She has a depth of knowledge of policies at both a local level because of her work with Multnomah County and statewide issues of transportation, education, healthcare, and criminal justice. She is a person who listens carefully. She listens to what people say until she understands what's being communicated. But she's also a skilled two-way communicator. She will tell you what you need to hear, not just what you want to hear. Her integrity is above reproach. She's always truthful. She does her homework, and she's just one of those people who will always land on the right side of an issue. She's unfailingly gracious, always respectful of other people, but again, being honest about her own views and her own positions. I think she's a person who would make a wonderful state senator, and so I urge your support.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mr. Chair. My name is Christian Calzada. I am from Forest Grove, Oregon. I want to thank you for the opportunity for letting us talk and show our support for each candidate. Today I'm here to show my support for Rob Wagner. As an undocumented student, the work that Rob has done has made a big impact in my life. Fighting for more affordable colleges is something that is really important and means a lot to me. It means that I can stay in school, and it means that I can continue fighting for my dream. Rob has been a great ally during these hard times with the current president. He understands that people's voices matter, and that includes all people, including undocumented folks. My time knowing Rob, the thing that has impacted me the most is that he's not a classic politician, but more a public servant. He is someone who cares about his community deeply, someone who I look up to because one day I want to be running for office too. For these reasons and all the other reasons that have been talked about today, I urge your support for Rob Wagner. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Lupe Mover, Andrea Salinas, and Lori Wimmer.
Good afternoon. This feels a little bit like deja vu. I'm glad I'm on this side. My name is Andrea Salinas. I'm from Lake Oswego, Multnomah County. I'm the state representative for House District 38. I've known Rob since I moved here to Oregon back in 2006. I was working for Congresswoman Hooley. He was the political director for AFT. Rob and I have worked in the trenches to help lower pesticide use at K through 12 schools, to clean up diesel bus engines in schools. We've worked on the successful Measure 66 and 67 together, the failed Measure 97 together. Rob has always been there. He is a hard worker, and I've seen this year after year, the entire time that I've been doing politics here in Oregon. But it's not the great organization skills or the commitment to the community or even the years of political and civil service that I'm here to speak on Rob's behalf. It's his big heart, his sincerity, and his integrity. Rob is the first person to acknowledge his privilege and check it at the door. And we don't find a lot of this down in Salem. And he elevates the voices of those in the shadows, those who don't have voices. He brings them to the table. He approaches problems with compassion and a keen sense of fairness, but he will fight till the end if he has to. He has demonstrated these qualities as an OLCV board member, a member of the Lake Oswego School Board, and as someone I call my colleague and my friend. You have a hard decision before you. You have a lot of great candidates. I know you'll make the right call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lupita Maurer. Just wanted for the record. I live in Tigard, Oregon. I'm a Latina and a software engineer, and I was shocked to hear that the Senate has only 8 women. You have the power to correct this disparity. I'm here to ask you to please vote for one of the 2 capable women standing in front of you today, and particularly Claudia Black. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Lori Wimmer from Portland, Oregon, here to represent the fabulous 47,000 members of the Oregon Education Association. Our members in Senate District 19 had an agonizing choice to make, and so they did something fairly unprecedented for our organization, and they co-endorsed both Rob Wagner and Claudia Black. In this decision, I would say, because I have known, admired, and worked for both of these 2 wonderful people for decades since we were children, both have dedicated their lives to public service. Both bring passion, intelligence, and dedication to the work. And the people of Senate District 19 would be lucky to have either of them represent them. I've also been deputized to add that in addition to OEA, SEIU is also supporting both candidates. I do not envy you your task today. You have here an embarrassment of riches. And while the major unions of this state had the luxury of selecting 2 of the best from among a really incredible pool of candidates, you must select just one. Still, no matter whether it's Senator Wagner or Senator Black, Oregonians will be well served by your vote here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Glenda Douglas, Bob Tackett, and Charles Ormsby.
How much time is left, Kevin?
How much time is left? Or how many people? We have about 5 more people.
Oh,
and we're at 32 minutes.
We'll get through.
Hello. My name is Bob Tackett. I'm the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Northwest Oregon Labor Council. I'm here today on behalf of the 50,000 people that we represent, including the 3 counties represented here today, to say that we're in support of Rob Wagner. He did his due diligence. He went through the same process that all of you went through. And he came to us, he asked for our support. He filled out the same questionnaire that you guys filled out. And in addition, he had to go to the Oregon AFL-CIO because it's a state race. We couldn't endorse without the Oregon AFL-CIO making the endorsement first. So we made a recommendation to the Oregon AFL-CIO. they endorsed than we were able to endorse. And I'm not wearing this, but I am a supporter of Rob Wagner. Just wouldn't get over the belly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, County Commissioners of Washington, Multnomah, and Clackamas County. My name is Charles Ormsby. I live in Birds Hill, which is on the northeast quadrant of Lake Oswego, in the Lake Oswego Urban Growth Management Area with a Portland address. So we touch every government entity between here and the White House. I'm here today not to endorse any of the candidates, but my primary problem is to get the city of Lake Oswego to reconfigure the intersection of B Avenue, State Street and B Avenue to enable the safe passage expeditiously of TriMet buses, standard 40-foot length and up-and-coming 60-foot articulateds. I was told by the mayor this weekend at the Lake Oswego Chairs Council meeting that this would not be done. This is unacceptable, and I will be filing whatever complaints to dissuade the Lake Oswego City Council from this course of action. TriMet buses for 40 years have made that turn or better. I have a schedule from 1977, and I am more than torqued at this intransigence of Lake Oswego so they can put up their North Anchor project, which is a boutique hotel with conjoined age-restricted housing, essentially to dissuade transportation use in and around Highway 43 corridor travel shed, which is essentially Senate District 19. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Okay, we have Mark Gamba, Claus Gibson, and Glenda Douglas, if she is here. And that is our final three, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon. It's a rare pleasure to get to speak to all the members of the Metro County Commissions simultaneously. My name is Mark Gamba. I'm the mayor of Milwaukee. And you have a hard problem ahead of you. You have three really outstanding candidates. There is no doubt about that. I think each one of them would make an excellent senator. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what change do we need in the Salem way of working? What are the issues that Salem is failing to address? And I would say that, in my opinion, they are failing to address the single most important issue that faces all of us and indeed all of humanity, and that is climate change. Oregon, the legislature in Oregon has not done what is necessary even to meet their own not so impressive standards. So what I would suggest is that the person you choose today be someone who is both passionate and an expert in that field. And that person is Daphne Weisham. She is I would dare say, world-renowned expert in the field and in the area of climate change. And the Oregon legislature would be well served to have her on board. She would also be an outstanding senator in all the other issues that we all care about. But that is where our legislature needs some serious help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Klaus Gibson. I'm a Clackamas County resident and a retired business owner. And I ask you, Commissioners, beyond disappointment, what makes an electable candidate in local elections? Would it be someone whom voters can relate and to whom they think will represent them? What qualities would such a candidate have? First is probably trust. Voters want a person that, yes, politically works across the aisle, negotiates, but doesn't compromise core values. That, in essence, is Daphne Weisham. Voters recognize a genuine, caring office seeker. Voters sense when they are being sold platitudes. Voters sense that she is the genuine article. And Daphne's demeanor inspires confidence, and she has proven that she not only talks the talk, but she walks the walk. So I hope that you will make your choice and select Daphne for Senate Seat 19. Thank you.
And that concludes public comment. Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you all. It's time for the opening statement. Again, you have 2 minutes for your statement. Clerk Moss will show the yellow card when you have 30 seconds remaining. And Ms. Black, you're at the table first.
Thank you very much. Can people see that name tag okay? Or that? Tell me when I start. I've got it down.
Anytime.
Hi, it is such a pleasure to be here today, and thank you for all the time you've spent talking to all of us as candidates. I have been preparing for this position for my entire career. In 26 years working with the Oregon legislature, I have championed health care for all, human services for vulnerable children, adults, and seniors, and that counties serve, and I've worked to strengthen the mental health safety net. But the last 6.5 years, I focused on counties and the key role they play in our system. I've worked with members of each of your boards because I knew we were stronger together and that a tri-county alliance could break through barriers on behalf of our constituents. I drafted the courthouse bill that created for the first time the partnership with states and counties to replace crumbling courthouses. Now both Multnomah County and Clackamas County are building new ones. I helped craft the legislation that made sure that coordinated care organizations were required to contract with counties for mental health and public health. I was on the fire team with Jim McCauley and Chris Lyons in getting the transportation package through. Education has always been at my core, whether serving as PTA president or as an institute director at Portland State University, and I'm proud to be endorsed by the Oregon Education Association. As a lifelong supporter of unions, I'm also proud to be endorsed by SEIU, AFSCME, and the Coalition of Police and Sheriffs. If there is one thing that everyone in Salem knows is that I never take no for an answer. There is always a way. I look for solutions for the path forward, and I am relentless, as anyone who has had me follow them into the bathroom can tell you. I form strong relationships, I bring diverse people together, and I'm a partner you can count on. We live in uncertain times with counties facing financial constraints, increased demand for services, and a divided political environment. You need someone in Salem that understands the role of counties is critical to the state of Oregon succeeding. You need someone who understands this relationship and will get you the funding and tools that you need to fulfill your mission. I am that person for counties, for Senate District 19, and for all Oregonians. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner.
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, is there another chair? He's actually in Germany, I believe, but I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today. I'm Rob Wagner, and I'm also searching the appointment for Senate District 19. To tell you just a little bit about myself and why I seek this appointment, focusing on the future of our communities and the state of Oregon. I grew up right here in the heart of the district, and Lori and I are raising our 4 kids here. I learned early that civic engagement is our family value, and I've rolled up my sleeves to commit myself to our local redevelopment committees, partnering on transportation solutions in coordination with our local small businesses. I've been appointed by our mayor to our Housing Coordination and Affordability Task Force, and I've run for our local school board, where I focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and building back career and technical education programs for over 7,000 students. I've learned the importance of listening to my constituents, open communication, community outreach, and citizen engagement. I have 20 years of legislative and policy experience, from being a legislative aide, an education and healthcare advocate, and a senior administrator at the state's largest higher education institution, where I focused a lot of my work on developing public-private partnerships in workforce development for diverse, traditionally underserved students of all ages, giving them the opportunity for success in college as well as their careers. And even through our most recent economic recovery, there are too many people that are being left behind. I'm passionate about linking education and human services to economic development to provide pathways out of poverty. We need to find solutions to affordable housing and transportation needs to improve the quality of life for our residents. We need to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and protect our seniors and our veterans. We need the state of Oregon to be a good partner in these efforts. I look forward to our conversation today. I will bring a passionate voice with data-driven decision-making and a collaborative approach to our legislative service. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Rysam?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. If there's one thing I've taken away from this experience, it is gratitude that there are so many people out there like you working to make our community a better place. So thank you for your service. While the task of choosing your next state senator is not easy, I wanted to clarify for you the ways in which I may stand out. One of those is deep expertise on the very job legislators are asked to do: research, draft, and pass legislation that responds to the complex issues that confront us on a daily basis. With my decades of experience working for public policy think tanks, I have sharpened this expertise on a number of areas that are now front and center here in Oregon, including climate change, income inequality, women's rights, and bigotry that has reached alarming proportions of late. Having me represent District 19 in the Senate at a time when climate legislation is being debated by legislators would be fortuitous. I've helped draft model legislation that would go further than our current proposed legislation would, and I look forward to seeing it introduced quickly should you choose me as your champion. Likewise, having me in the Senate at a time when our state's budget woes are at their all-time worst would also be fortuitous. I've been a fighter for fair corporate taxation and other economic equity issues like living wages throughout my career, and I will work hard to plug all the tax loopholes and remove all the unfair subsidies that force individual taxpayers to absorb most of the costs of doing the business of government, while billionaires and corporations get one free lunch after another. But win or lose, I look forward to working with you and other leaders in Oregon as we make sure our state provides the vital progressive leadership our nation so desperately needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think I'm where I'm supposed to be now. Thank you, and I'll now ask staff to lead nominees, except for Ms. Black, into another room. Ms. Black, please join us at the table.
Few notes here.
So please note that time will be kept during your presentation. You will have a maximum of 2 minutes to give an answer to each question. And I think the county's question, Clackamas County, is going to take about 4 minutes. Again, the yellow card will indicate 30 seconds. And when the red card's shown, you're done. And with that, let's begin. And Multnomah County, question number 1.
All right, does this just automatically happen? Okay. Greetings. So, what do you see as the most pressing issues confronting our mental health system, and how would you work to address those issues?
Thank you for that question. All you have to do is look at the homeless people in our communities to see that our mental health system is seriously underfunded. That's just one visible indicator. Local governments need more funding from the state. Each county is going to have a different approach depending on the needs. Prevention is key. We need to serve people at the right place at the right time with the right services. And some of the successful programs are mobile crisis units that can respond on site. Another is walk-in clinics that are available for folks 24/7. And we know how important it is to combine and to coordinate behavioral health with physical health. Treating the whole person was a guiding goal when we created coordinated care organizations. I also worked on legislation to be sure that behaviorists could be embedded with primary care providers so they're on-site services, mental health services that are available to everyone. We need to recognize, though, that there are people on the street with serious and persistent mental health issues, and they need more intensive services like wraparound where they live and maybe even in-home visitation. Unity Center is an excellent example of a community-based facility for people experiencing mental health crises. The wraparound includes plans for releasing patients back into the community with the necessary supports in place. And we know that these are more effective and cheaper responses to mental illness than are emergency departments and jails and prisons. Unfortunately, right now, our jails and prisons serve as de facto mental health facilities. That's wrong. We need to provide mental health services in the community to keep people out of the criminal justice system and reserve emergency departments for medical emergencies. I'll work hard at the state level to secure additional funds to improve our mental health system. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, due to, and you've never heard any of these issues before, due to inadequate affordable housing inventory, increased rents, and low vacancy rates, communities across the state are seeing an unprecedented increase in the need for both homeless prevention and shelter capacity. What ideas will you support and advocate for that bring additional resources to support local capacity?
Thank you. It's clear that Oregonians are having to spend as much as half of their income to afford an apartment, let alone a house. Everyone in the metro area is feeling this crunch. We're seeing people living in tents all over the Tri-County area, as well as outside the downtown core. And we know how upsetting this is for businesses, residents, and the tremendously negative impact on the people who are homeless. They're young, they're seniors, they're families, they're collectively at greater risk for poor health, for being victimized, and drug and alcohol abuse. This is the challenge of our times in a way it has never been in the past, and we need a multi-pronged approach from the government. Counties cannot manage this alone. The state can make a big difference. Again, we need state funding to help with this. Next month, the legislature, just next week, the legislature will consider a request for $5 million to be allocated in emergency shelter funding. If approved, I will assure that all 3 counties get their fair share of this funding because you all have issues. In addition, I strongly support the 2018 Affordable Housing Package that's supported by the Housing Alliance and the Realtors that includes a $55 document recording fee increase and the establishment of first-time home buyers savings accounts. I also support a constitutional amendment that may go to voters in 2018 to build desperately needed affordable housing. The amendment would allow counties and local governments to lend their credit for the benefit of not-for-profits or a private entity. People want to help, and this would give them an opportunity to do so. And finally, I'm encouraged by Metro's intent to place an affordable housing bond measure on the ballot this fall. I would strongly support such a bond.
Great. Next up is Washington County.
Okay. Ms. Black, what significant work or life experience, education, background, or training would you bring to the state Senate that isn't there already?
I think the breadth and depth of my experience over the last 26 years in health, human services, public safety, transportation, infrastructure, building courthouses. I've worked on every issue just about for the county, elections, kind of you name it, and I have worked in the legislature itself. I've worked for state government, I've worked for county government, I've worked in the governor's office, I've worked in higher education. I joke I can't keep a job, but actually I've been successful in all those, so I have a broad and deep depth of experience in that arena and lots of successes, starting with the bicycle helmet bill in 1993. I also have a very good track record of working in a bipartisan fashion. And as I mentioned, the bike helmet bill, when I partnered up with then Senator Wes Cooley, who was a rural Republican from Powell Butte who raced motorcycles, and it was a Republican House, and that's how we got the bicycle helmet bill. So part of it is the bipartisan approach, part of it is the experience, the education. I have a master's in public administration. The other thing I bring is a tenacity that is deep and powerful, and as you heard me say earlier, I do not take no for an answer. I will work till I get the solution. I bring people together. I've always used a collaborative approach. I did it when we were working on clean air in the metro area. I brought together the counties, the cities, Metro, Oregon Health Authority, Department of Environmental Quality, and we sat down at a table and we hammered out an agreement on how we could move forward so that we were in lockstep. There's so much more power when you work together. The end.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
You only have one question?
Oh, no, we have a second question for Commissioner
okay,
Malinowski.
excuse me.
Excuse me, Commissioner Malinowski.
What do you consider to be the Metro region's biggest long-term challenge? And how would you, as a freshman state senator, address that challenge?
Boy, that's a tough one if you think there's just one challenge. I'm thinking of affordable housing. I'm thinking of transportation. I'm thinking of economic development, all of which rise to the top immediately. And I think they're so interrelated. One of the things that, I know you and I have talked about in Washington County is there isn't much affordable housing there, but a huge number of people drive in there every day, impacts 217. So we need affordable housing in every region, every part of our region. We need economic development. And one of the pieces that I'm looking at there is we need more workforce funds, and things are going pretty well in the urban areas, but when you look at the rural areas, the rural parts of the state, the Tri-County area, we need to do more work. One of the issues that Commissioner Humbertson has brought up that I think has great possibility is the cross-laminated timber piece. So you rehab forests, keep them healthy, use this timber, create jobs, reduce the chances of fire throughout the district. So that's let's see. There's economic development, there's housing, and okay, guys, give me a hand. What's the third one I said? Oh, transportation. I think some of those things, thank you, begin to take care of themselves when you work on these other pieces. If we have affordable housing, we can reduce the amount of transportation, the number of cars traveling on the road, but we also need to fix the I-205 corridor. I worked on the transportation package as part of the fire team, as we were called, as I mentioned, and we really focused on the three bottlenecks during that time. There was not adequate funding for 205. There's just enough funding to get through to this fall, planning money. And once we get that resolved, we'll be good.
Great. So Clackamas County also has two questions. I'm going to ask one, and Vice Chair Humbertson will ask the other. So I'm first. The state and our region are in the midst of a severe housing crisis. The senator representing District 9 is uniquely situated to support the housing priorities of all three metro area counties, all of whom are intensely focused on numerous initiatives around affordable housing and homelessness. In Clackamas County, in just the last year, we built pods to temporarily house homeless vets, and we are working with our cities to conduct a countywide housing needs assessment that will help tell us the types of housing needed and where they should be located. However, more help is needed, and the state can play a vital role on this issue. What will you do to help address the crisis while also supporting each county's individual approaches and projects?
Chair Bernard, I think I addressed some of that earlier with Multnomah County's question. I think it makes a lot of sense to do a countywide assessment rather than just start building, to kind of look at the planning piece, what is the need there, and then figuring out what the cost is going to be. I think the constitutional amendments, if we can get that changed in 2018, that will be a big boon for us to be able to partner, counties to be able to partner with not-for-profits or private folks that really want to step up and make a difference there. We've always recognized that even though it's a region, each county has different priorities, different needs based on the population and the amount of available land and so forth. I think one of the things that I have talked about quite a bit during the legislative session was accessory dwelling units is one possibility for folks to be able to do a little bit more of the infill and for, to increase some of the affordable housing pieces, either for family members or to rent out. It also helps folks that are feeling this stress of having expensive property taxes to be able to offset some of those costs. I'm hoping, very hopeful, that this housing package is going to go through. I know that Metro has been going around to each county commission recently and doing a presentation on that and trying to get support. And I think coming together on that conversation would be huge. That would be a big funding piece. I don't see that anybody's going to be trying to push one approach for the whole county area or the whole state. But we definitely need to rely on the state for more funding, and if that means, I believe we need revenue reform very strongly. We need to charge corporations more and low-income people less. There are 4% we are number 4 in the country for taxing our high taxes on low-income folks, and that's just wrong. So we need to rework our revenue system, at the same time add additional costs, so raise additional funds so that we can fund housing, mental health, and so forth. You as counties can't do it all. You really need more help from the state, and I will be a strong advocate for that.
Thank you. Ken?
Though a major achievement, the transportation package passed last year by the legislature failed to adequately address many of the very real transportation issues facing the state of Oregon. Most notably in our region and within Senate District 19, funding for the I-205 bottleneck project that is recognized as one of the top statewide congestion choke points was cut out of the package. During floor debate, your predecessor received verbal assurances of the legislature's commitment to the I-205 project, and he also got a budget note passed directing future value pricing revenues to it. Would you be one of the primary champions for this project within your caucus, and what ideas do you have for the state to fund this project in the near term?
First, you bet I would. That's a very high priority. I worked hard to fund county priorities during this last legislative session, and when we passed the transportation package, we were very hopeful that we would have a regional bump so that we'd have more funding for local projects of regional significance. We didn't get there. What I understand from talking to ODOT officials is that Clackamas County has planning funding that goes through the fall, and then it ends. And if you don't get additional funding in like next week in the 2018 legislative session, then the project's going to stop. It's going to halt, and it's scheduled to be completed in 2025 if it goes according to schedule. It's about really close to $500 million project, and if it's delayed, it's an additional cost of $15 million per year. So we can't afford that. We need to get that. We need to get that fixed. ODOT has estimated, they reported last week, I think it was, to the Transportation Commission, and they'll be reporting to the legislature as required by the legislation during the legislative session next week. And they have identified they need $34 million to carry through, an additional $34 million to carry through to 2020, which would allow them to get funding in the 2019 legislative session so that they could continue this project. If they don't get that $34 million, at least direction or identification of where those funds are going to come from now, things are going to grind to a halt. And I know that the feds, that ODOT has put in a grant to the federal government for $50 million, but we won't know until April if that is funded. So I also support Metro's 2020 proposed bond measure and see that as an opportunity to fund the local projects like the Burnside Bridge and the Sunrise Corridor and I-205. The end.
Thank you, and that's it.
Okay.
Next up is
Thank you
Rob
very
Wagner.
much.
Thank you. Welcome. So, this is a time will be kept for your presentation. You'll have approximately 2 minutes to give an answer to each question, and then the yellow card will go up telling you got 30 seconds left. Timing will start at the conclusion of the commissioner's question. First up is Multnomah County.
All right. So, what do you see as the most pressing issues confronting our mental health system, and how would you work to address those issues?
So, in terms of mental health, this is an issue that has impacted my own life and a lot of people that I know deeply. And I think that it's not an area of policy specifically that I've spent a lot of time on. But I will say, in my experience, both at Portland Community College and also through our local school district, if you look at the drivers of what keeps students in school, wraparound services and supports for substance abuse, for mental health, are sometimes critically overlooked supports. So that's one element. I do think I'm well aware of the work that Commissioner Myron is leading with Multnomah County and gaining an outside perspective on this sort of porous system. I'm also quite aware of the work that's being done and has been done in Washington County with the Hawthorne Center and trying to provide more seamless services for folks who are going through crisis to be able to gain access to mental health. But ultimately, I think we're also critically underfunded. If you look at the state and how we provide healthcare services, it's difficult to see sufficient revenue going into mental health. So I believe that I'd be able to not only partner, but hopefully champion this issue. Like I mentioned, it's personal to me, and it's something that I think is critically overdue, and it's valuable for every other piece that intersects into our social policy to be able to thrive.
Thank you. All right. Due to inadequate affordable housing inventory, increased rents, and low vacancy rates, communities across the state are seeing an unprecedented increase in the need for both homeless prevention and shelter capacity. What ideas will you support and advocate for that bring additional resources to support local capacity?
So I do believe that housing from shelter through stability, adequacy, affordability is a pipeline all the way through access to an apartment through first-time home ownership. On the homelessness front, the first thing that I would do is, starting next Monday, is to step up and begin to advocate for the $5 million that has been allocated, or that the governor is putting forward, at least for some additional assistance for Multnomah County. I know that there's $2.6 million of that may end up toward Multnomah County. I'd like to see that actually topped up to help support the homeless population in Clackamas County, with 2,300 last year homeless individuals in Clackamas County, and additional resources for Washington County. I don't think there's enough resources, frankly, coming into the system. I know the incredible efforts that are being made at the local level. I do think, too, looking at prevention, So what are we doing around substance abuse treatment? If you look at the rise of the opioid epidemic right now, we talked about mental health a moment ago. What could we be doing on the front end to be able to provide supports for families so they don't end up on the streets? I was looking at the housing and urban development statistics on this, and I was shocked that Oregon has one of the highest rates for families that live without shelter, as well as veterans. And I look at some of the efforts that you're doing in terms of the Yeoman effort, again, in Clackamas County with the veterans pods. But ultimately, additional resources are needed, better interagency collaboration, and supports from the state. So I know great work is happening, and I'd hopefully be able to partner with you on that effort. If we do have an opportunity to talk more about housing in general, one other thing in case we don't get there is I also hope to advocate for your ability to build public-private partnerships through having a constitutional amendment that would allow for you to enter into geo-bonding locally to try to double or triple the amount of housing, affordable housing you're able to build. So sign me up on that piece of legislation, and you can count on my advocacy through the election cycle to get that passed.
Thank you.
Washington County.
Okay, Mr. Wagner, I'll ask the first question, and my colleague, Commissioner Malinowski, will ask the second question for Washington County. So what significant work or life experience, education, background, or training would you bring to the state Senate that isn't there already?
That's a great question. I would say, I think about this quote often that runs through my head, and from Thomas Jefferson, it says, "He who knows best knows how little he knows." And I think about the humility of bringing that into the Oregon State Senate. I think there is a lot of folks that come in with a lot of passion, and it's sort of a my way or the highway. This is what we're going to do, and sort of try to drive an issue or policy agenda. I do think that it's important as an elected official to hit the ground listening and to understand what the lay and the fabric of the landscape is. That said, the particular pieces for me, I have to look into my heart, and you can see that reflected in the community that was here today. I am passionate about using an equity lens on determining how we are assessing our budget priorities as well as our policy priorities. I have been passionate my entire life of trying to find opportunities for folks who don't traditionally have a seat at the table to be able to hear those voices, bring them forward, and make sure they're heard. I'm sure my fellow school board members out here probably sometimes get a little tired of me constantly pounding the table and talking about our work plan on diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I think that is critical work, and something that I would be honored to be able to help move that forward in the state Senate.
Thank you.
Okay, question 2. What do you consider to be this metro region's biggest long-term challenge, and how would you, as a freshman state senator, address this challenge?
I would say, thinking about the lens of economic development, because the intersectionality between careers and jobs intersects into so many other areas. Transportation, for example, having jobs where people can actually live closer to where they work is hugely important. I know out the Sunrise Corridor, for example, we have shovel-ready land that's ready to go. What could we do to be able to provide additional units that would be close to jobs so that we don't have to have the stop-and-go traffic for people commuting all the way to Hillsborough to get a job? 70–80% of Clackamas County has to commute out of that county and come into Washington County. And I also think when I talk about economic development, Oregon has an opportunity to set a bold agenda and not set up a false choice between the environment and good jobs. Somebody was telling me the other night, how in the world did you win the endorsement of the Oregon League of Conservation Voters and every single building and construction trades union? And I think some of that is reflected in the fact that if we look long-term around where we want to be with a clean energy jobs future, it's a false choice to think that we just have to focus on the now. We should be looking at economic development through a lens of how do we provide good jobs in a clean energy economy in the future. I think there's intersectionality between the environment, between how we live, our quality of life, and the future of the state.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to ask the first question, and Vice Chair Humbertston will ask the second one. The state and our region are in the midst of severe housing crisis. The senator representing District 9 is uniquely situated to support the housing priorities of all three metro counties, all of whom are intensely focused on numerous initiatives around affordable housing and homelessness. In Clackamas County, in just the last year, we built pods to temporarily house homeless veterans, and we are working with our cities to conduct a countywide housing needs assessment that will tell us the types of housing needed and where it should be located. However, more help is needed at the state, and the state can play a vital role on this issue. What will you do to help address the crisis while also supporting each county's individual approaches and projects?
So you get the question with the longest number of words and the most commas? Is that okay? So I'm actually glad that we talked about homelessness and then have an opportunity to go a little bit deeper on housing as well. There are the last 2 years, there's been 65,000 new residents added to the state of Oregon each year. In a 2-year period, that's the entire population of Senate District 19, from Southwest Portland down through Westland, Lake Oswego, and Tualatin, every 2 years. And if you think about what strain that has on everything from transportation, especially our housing needs, coming out of the last Great Recession, we all know that our housing stock has not kept up. When I was in graduate school in Washington, D.C., I worked at the National League of Cities, and my job was I oversaw a housing and urban development home technical assistance grant, where we looked at best practices for communities across the country on how to leverage Section 8 low-income housing tax credits, CDBG dollars, to be able to partner with local governments, community-based nonprofits, and financial institutions to be able to address local needs around housing. We know the challenge that we face here regionally. I think some of it is the resources and the tools to be able to get it done. I mentioned the geo-bonding bill, which I'd hope to be able to champion and support this upcoming next election cycle. But I also think that we need to have some courage and talk about tenant protections. We obviously had a bill this last legislative session that unfortunately, and we can talk about the culture of the Senate, but I think we need some courage in there too to stand up for people who are in critical need right now of not losing their homes. So what can we do to put that sort of legislation back on the table and protect people who are in that sort of crisis? And then finally, again, I think being intentional long-term about building jobs close to home. I know I've talked with some of you about this, but sometimes when we build, I'm at time. I'm sorry. Hopefully maybe we get to talk about transportation. Okay.
Thank you. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Though a major achievement, the transportation package passed last year by the legislature. So you'll have your chance. I'll start again. Though a major achievement, the transportation package passed last year by the legislature failed to adequately address many of the very real transportation issues facing the state of Oregon. Most notably in our region and within Senate District 19, funding for the I-205 bottleneck project that is recognized as one of the statewide congestion choke points was cut out of the package. During floor debate, your predecessor received verbal assurances from the legislature's commitment to the I-205 project, and he also got a budget note passed directing future value pricing revenues to it. Would you be one of the primary champions for this project within your caucus, and what ideas do you have for the state to fund this project in the near term?
So as I was saying about transportation, yeah, first of all, yes, the southern portion of the Senate district actually is where 205 runs east-west. And there's a 6-mile corridor between Stafford Road, for folks that don't know, everyone out here knows because they drive it, between Stafford Road and through the Abernathy Bridge. We're talking about the transportation package was very well intentioned. I don't think anybody turns their nose up at $5.2, $5.3 billion of additional funding. I was critically disappointed that we didn't see the $450 million that we needed, both for road widening for that 6-mile stretch, as well as full replacement of the Abernathy Bridge. But when we also talk about transit, so I'm absolutely committed to that. I think there's opportunities yet still to be determined at the federal level. I know that the county commissioners and Clackamas have been adamant on trying to keep that section of road on the table and working with our federal delegation. But as well, looking at transit, I think is huge to talk about. When we talk about West Side and bringing a light rail line down 99W, also thinking about what are the impacts of bringing transit where you've created halos around stations where people have been priced out of their homes. We've actually made public investment in transit, and people are losing access to affordable housing. So we ultimately have pockets of poverty outside these sort of islands of privilege around our transit corridors. So making sure as people are pushed further and further out with gentrification, that we're providing access to transit, and we're looking at it again through an equity lens. Was there an additional piece that I can ask on that? No? Okay.
Great. That's it.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please take a seat. Welcome. Please note that the time will be kept during your presentation. We'll have a maximum of 2 minutes to give an answer to each of the 6 questions. Again, the yellow card will indicate you have 30 seconds remaining. Timing will start at the conclusion of the commissioner's question. First up is Multnomah County.
Thank you. So, what do you see as the most pressing issues confronting our mental health system, and how would you work to address those issues?
I think probably the most pressing issue regarding mental health is simply the issue of homelessness. We know that without a home, people don't have the stability not only to have their basic creature comforts met, but it's virtually impossible to get a job without an address. So homelessness and mental health are clearly intertwined. Given the huge rise in rents in the Portland metropolitan area, we're seeing people increasingly pushed out of their homes and into cars, sleeping in cars in communities so that they can get to jobs the next day. And so clearly the two issues of homelessness and mental health are entwined. Another critical issue, I think, is that our police are not fully trained to address the mental health problems, and too often we see people with mental illnesses treated as criminals, and they end up in our criminal justice system where they aren't getting the kind of mental health care that they desperately need.
Thank you.
So speaking of homelessness, due to inadequate affordable housing inventory, increased rents, and low vacancy rates, communities across the state are seeing an unprecedented increase in the need for both homeless prevention and shelter capacity. What ideas will you support and advocate for that bring additional resources to support local capacity?
So I think we need not only tenant protections and an end to no-cause evictions. We need to increase the document recording fee, possibly real estate transfer taxes, to help pay for subsidized rentals for tenants that lose their housing for one reason or another. I also think we should be exploring statutory preemption of rent control at the state level, perhaps for the Portland metropolitan region, given how rapidly rents are rising. And then finally, I think we need to figure out a way to disincentivize the sort of flipping of houses where people are going in and buying houses and then just flipping them to make a profit. One innovative approach that Milwaukee Mayor Mark Gamber has taken is to place a tax on additions to homes of over $100,000 or additional construction, and have that tax pay for homeless shelters. I think we should also be exploring the possibility of eliminating the mortgage tax credit for second and third homes, and for homes over a certain value.
Thank you.
Great. Washington County?
Ms. Wisham, I'm going to ask the first question, and then my colleague Milowski will ask the second question. My question is, what significant work or life experience, education, background, or training would you bring to the state Senate that isn't there already?
Well, I grew up in India. I'm the child of medical missionaries who devoted their lives to serving the poorest in India. My parents were very well educated. They could have done anything with their lives. They were both Harvard graduates, and they chose to serve the poorest in rural India. That gave me not only a model of service that I bring to everything that I do, and a lens of looking at it through how best to serve those that are particularly disadvantaged by globalization. It's one reason why when I began work at a nonprofit called the Center for Investigative Reporting, I looked into the role of U.S. corporations in the developing world and how they were essentially poisoning people in the Bhopal Union Carbide accident, and how this had destroyed the lives of thousands of people in the interests of profits. I bring real-life experience taking on major corporations. I've taken on Enron Corporation with Senate testimony, but in the Senate Finance Committee, looking at their violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. I have taken on Shell. When they came to Portland, we helped organize the kayaktivists to blockade Shell, and as a result, Obama pulled out of drilling in the Arctic. I've been to the Niger Delta, where I've seen the human rights and environmental implications of our investments. So I think I bring a global perspective, but I also bring a very particularly Oregonian perspective. I spent my teen years here in Oregon and really came to love the Pacific Northwest, the beauty and the majesty of the state, and it's my passion to protect the environment, in particular the Pacific Northwest environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. What do you consider to be this metro region's biggest long-term challenge, and how would you as a freshman state senator address the challenge?
I think that the biggest long-term challenge is our budget, and because that affects everything. It affects education, it affects our ability to pursue health care, as we saw in the last couple of weeks, where we were all holding our breath as to whether or not Measure 101 would pass. The fact that it was teetering on the edge of passing had dire potential consequences for other public services in the state. I think it's criminal that corporations are able to get 30-year tax breaks and pay virtually no taxes in this state, and that we're talking about going back and renegotiating retirement benefits for employees, public employees that have committed their lives to serve the public good. My feeling is if we're going to go back and look at the public employees' contracts, we should go back to the corporations' contracts as well, and perhaps revisit those tax breaks to make sure that our public purse is fully funded.
Okay, Commissioner Bernard, is this working? Yeah. Commissioner Bernard asked me to read this, and I will ask the first question for Clackamas County, and Commissioner Humberson, Vice Chair, will read the second question. The state and our region are in the midst of a severe housing crisis. The senator representing District 19 is uniquely situated to support the housing priorities of all 3 metro area counties, all of whom are intensely focused on numerous initiatives around affordable housing and homelessness. In Clackamas County, in just the last year, we've built pods to temporarily house homeless veterans, and we are working with our cities to conduct a countywide housing needs assessment that will tell us the types of housing needed and where it should be located. However, more help is needed, and the state can play a vital role on this issue. What will you do to help address this crisis while supporting each county's individual approaches and projects?
Well, I think this is an issue not only for the Senate, but also for Metro and for planners to be considering how best to plan out the development, transportation grids, public transit lines. I think it's intertwined with the expansion of the I-205 highway and the Sunrise Corridor. We need to be thinking holistically about this issue. Too often we disaggregate transportation and housing, and yet the reason that we have so much congestion on our freeways is because housing is so unaffordable in the urban core, and people are driving further and further to get to lower paid jobs. One idea I have is that we should have bus-only lanes if we expand the I-205 if we expand with the expansion of I-205, electric buses perhaps that could go from one point to the other to ensure that we have rapid public transit available for those who need it most. Another really critical point is how you develop housing to service the needs of those who need the public transit to get to their jobs. There's an awful lot of brownfields and undeveloped properties and what we call zombie houses that are sort of standing vacant in different parts of Clackamas County that could be upgraded and developed with the goal of being available for people that are of low income.
Thank you. Commissioner Hubbardson.
Just getting my notes down. She talks faster than I can write. Though a major achievement, the transportation package passed last year by the legislature failed to adequately address many of the very real transportation issues facing the state of Oregon. Most notably in our region and within the Senate District 19, funding for the I-205 bottleneck project that is recognized as one of the top statewide congestion choke points was cut out of the package. During floor debate, your predecessor received verbal assurances from the legislature's commitment to the I-205 project, and he also got a budget note passed directing future value pricing revenues to it. Would you be one of the primary champions for this project within your caucus, and what ideas do you have for the state to fund this project in the near term?
Yes, I support congestion pricing. However, I would add several caveats to that because one needs to ensure that one takes an equity lens to the issue. If we're talking about adding congestion taxes to commuters who are going to $15 an hour jobs and they're having to not only drive long distances to get to those jobs, but then also have to pay additional congestion pricing if they have no choice but to be transported, be driving at that particular time of day, that type of regressive response to the problem would be undesirable, I think. It's one reason why I was discussing the bus-only corridors that I think would be, if there's a way to provide free, ideally electric bus transportation on the corridor for people of limited means so that they don't have to pay that tax. And if this was set up in a really efficient way, I've seen this done in other cities. In Europe, they have specific lines and lanes that are dedicated just to very rapid bus transit. It's more affordable than light rail, and it allows for much more options in terms of ultimate destinations. But I think, yeah, in a nutshell, I would just say that congestion pricing is one way of paying for it, and of course, the gas tax as well.
Thank you.
So that's it. Why don't you go ahead and take a seat? I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity, since I am the chair, to suggest that we have a recess, and that want to remind commissioners at the table that we should not gather to discuss this appointment, and that because that would require Oregon public meeting, break Oregon public meeting law, and we'll take a 5-minute recess. It's now time for closing statements. To our nominees, again, you'll have 2 minutes for your statement. Clerk Moss will show the yellow card when there are 30 seconds remaining. We'll proceed in alphabetical order with Ms. Black. Please come up to the table and give your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are you starting now? Because again, I haven't timed. Okay. Thank you very much. I know you have a tough choice before you today. I want you to know that I have run a grassroots campaign contacting all 251 PCPs and earning their support person by person. I have received endorsements from a diverse group of trusted elected officials, community leaders, and organizations with whom I have worked closely over my career. I am deeply appreciative of the endorsement of the Independents for Progressive Action and the following elected officials at the state, county, and city level. At the state level, Representative Tana Sanchez, Janelle Bynum, Deborah Boone, Sherry Malmstrom. At the commission level, Tammy Bainey, Oregon Transportation Commission Chair and Deschutes County Commissioner, Annabelle Jaramillo, Benton County, and Bill Hall, Lincoln County Commissioner. At the city level, Joelle Davis, President of the Tualatin City Council and former Senate District 19 candidate, Charlotte Lehan, Wilsonville City Councilor. And even those organizations that have endorsed another candidate have praised my credentials. I have an unmatched record of legislative successes. I've spent my career working on the tough issues that matter the most to your constituents, providing health care for all, cleaning up the air, securing transportation funding, increasing mental health funding, breaking the intergenerational cycle of criminality. What? 30 seconds? By providing parent educations in the prison and an early Head Start program at the women's prison, and reducing deaths from opiate overdoses by making naloxone widely available, to name but a few. As I mentioned, I've always worked across the aisle. That kind of bipartisan outreach has contributed to my legislative successes over the years. I think it is particularly important that the Senate reflect the diverse and rich background of the state's population. If appointed, I will bring my formidable tenacity, experience, and advocacy skills to bear on behalf of the counties and the people you serve. I have a lot of energy. I will channel every bit of it to partner closely with you and be a champion for those whose voices must be heard in the legislature. I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner.
So yesterday, I went for a hike in Tryon Creek State Park with my family. It's a small tributary that runs through the heart of the Senate District, and it's a very special place to my family, as my mom was the education director and a protector of the park for over 2 decades. And it's a place where Lori and I were married. And was reflecting during that walk of the 15 minutes that I get to spend with you today as the capstone of a 3-month campaign, and reflecting about what I found so valuable about this entire experience and how I would approach my service in Salem. And it really comes back to the people that I hope to represent. I think about Cammie and Brett, who are in their garage in Tualatin 14 hours a day, working to scale their small business of iPhone carriers. And I think about Mark, who lives out on Stafford Road, right near 205. Now, he's a Republican, he's an airline mechanic, he's nearing retirement, and he's worried about his health care and efficiency in government. And I think about Beth, who's legally blind, and she lives in Multnomah Village, but she got her PhD, and she's a disability rights advocate. But I wouldn't be doing justice to this appointment process if I didn't mention Senator Richard Devlin. 21 years of legislative service. I worked on Richard's first 2 campaigns, and when he wasn't poring over the state budget and trying to figure out how to balance services through the Great Recession, he was always out in our community. My commitment will always be putting my community and the state of Oregon first, listening to people's authentic concerns and working to bring people with differing viewpoints together to help solve problems. I've truly enjoyed coming to all of your commission meetings and learning the issues that your constituents face. And given my ethic of hard work, I'll be at every school, every chamber, every civic organization. I'll bring my ability to listen. I'll bring my integrity and honesty to the job. And finally, I want to thank my family and all of the people who wrote letters and who came here to support me today. I ask for your vote as well as your partnership going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Once an environmental leader, Oregon has fallen down on the job. Portland's air is some of the most toxic in the country. Our traffic is worsening. Fracking for gas has started in the south of the state. A major gas pipeline is planned to stretch 230 miles across our southern border to Coos Bay, and now Trump wants to drill offshore. According to recent studies, the fossil fuel terminals proposed for our region would transport carbon equivalent to 5 Keystone XL pipelines, only one of which NASA's top climate scientist James Hansen said was game over for the planet. But wait, it gets worse. Our studies show that the timber industry, far from being an answer to the problem of climate change, is the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions in the state. Yet these huge emissions are not even being counted by our regulators. In fact, Oregon's Forest Practices Act is weaker than all of our neighbors. And we've just learned that the Clean Energy Jobs Bill is off the table in the next legislative session. If, as Governor Kate Brown and others claim, that we are still in on the Paris Climate Accords, we cannot build any new fossil fuel infrastructure, like the proposed Jordan Cove pipeline, which is one reason why Portland is leader on doing just that. Nor can we keep clear-cutting our forests. We must manage our forests and farmland more sustainably if we are to solve the climate crisis. Abundant economic opportunities await us if we do so, but our legislature is asleep at the switch. Oregon could be that progressive, game-changing beacon it once was, pushing the boundaries, showing what is possible, not just on climate action, but on health care, education, good, sustainable jobs, and narrowing the wealth inequality divide. As you make your choice for the next senator, please pick someone who will work fearlessly with the vision to help Oregon restore its role as a progressive leader. Our state and our nation needs this leadership now. We have no time to waste. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I thank all 3 of you and all of you for attending today. I appreciate we have a tough challenge, but we have a great bunch of people, great 3 people to consider in this appointment. First off, I want to check on the phone and make sure that the commissioners are still connected. So who's on the phone?
Commissioner Terry here. Roy Rogers here.
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Oh, that's it? Oh. Okay. We're going to begin deliberation in a minute. There will be open deliberation, so commissioners may speak freely as they desire. Once deliberation is complete, I'll call for a vote. The vote will be made in alphabetical order by commissioner, regardless of the county, and the 3 chairs will come last. As chair of the meeting, I will go last. As provided by the Secretary of State, the votes are weighted differently. Clerk Clark, Moss, I don't know where I got Clerk Clark, Can you please remind us of those weights?
Yes, I can, Mr. Chair. Clackamas County has 11 votes per commissioner, Multnomah is 4.4 votes per commissioner, and Washington County is 3.6 votes per commissioner.
Those votes are weighted to reflect the share of voters or electors in the Senate district living within each county. The votes will be tallied and recorded. State law says that a plurality is necessary to appoint, so keep that in mind. It's not the majority that's needed, but a plurality. The person who gets the most votes will be appointed. No one receives a plurality, then that is, if two or more candidates are tied for the most votes, I'll call for another vote at that time. We will keep doing this until there is a winner or winter's over. It may call for additional deliberation if a plurality does not emerge after that. Any questions? I'd like to make a comment. Last time we did this, and we're professionals at this, some people voted as they deliberated. Do we want to, how do we want to do this? You want to talk about what your issues are and whether you want to, at that point, vote? Or do you want to just talk about issues, or should we just vote? What do you want to do?
I suggest we deliberate and then vote separately.
So please don't say who you're voting for as you deliberate then, okay? I know that some people didn't particularly care for that last time. Where do you want to start? Which end? Or you just want to go ahead, somebody start?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. Since I was first and I'm going to be the first one voting, I might as well take the lead here and give my thoughts. First of all, thank you to all of you. We do have a plethora of riches, and I commend you. I'm very proud to be a Clackamas County Commissioner. I'm very proud that you have all stepped forward. I've talked about the system that I have in doing these appointments, and now I feel like I'm an expert at it because we've been through quite a few. I look first to what do the precinct committee people feel? Where do they weigh in? Then my next criteria is where are the community leaders that speak out? And then third, I look at the sort of the institutional support, the Basic Rights Oregon, the unions, the Chamber of Commerce, the different institutions. And then lastly, I look at the interview. And I weigh the interview much more heavily than everything else, because I think, as my good mentor, Commissioner Martha Schrader, has said to me when I started off on this journey and so confused about, oh my gosh, what do I do, what do I do? Especially when selecting the great Vic Gilliam's replacement. She said to me, oh Sonia, it's a job interview. Pick the best person for the job. So today we have a really interesting and wonderful opportunity. And I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be in the state Senate, what it means to be a leader for the people in the district. I know I got my legislative start staffing Senator Frank Roberts as an intern way back in the 90s. It was at a time when Claudia Black and I were working on our master's degrees. We got our first jobs working as professionals in 1993, I believe it was, or 19 in Salem, and I go way back. I go way back with Rob Wagner. We stood in line together to hear Bill Clinton, and I think we were like almost children then. So we've been friends ever since. I have just gotten to know Daphne, and I must say, her story and her lens and how compelling her childhood was. And she didn't mention this today, but I'm going to mention it to everyone. Daphne Weisham worked alongside Mother Teresa. And that, to me, is incredible. So we have these amazing people with amazing values. And I know when Claudia says she doesn't take no for an answer, it's like, oh my gosh, she is so telling you the truth. Please don't tell her no. And I know how Rob Wagner can build consensus and bring people together, and he endears the love and support of so many people. My son, I don't know if you all read your packets, but he wrote a wonderful letter of support that I read yesterday, actually, as I was going through the materials, in support of Rob Wagner. But what is the decision point for me? And while I know we aren't supposed to vote, I have to say that the inequities that we face in our state and in our community are great. And when I look at the numbers in the Senate, where we have 21 men as state senators and we have 8 women as state senators, I just have to say that we have an opportunity to make a difference. We have an opportunity to send a woman to Salem, and that's huge. So when we have qualified candidates, when everything is equal, should we not choose the woman? In this situation, I think that I do a score sheet, and I rate every question, every answer. Claudia Black had a perfect score. Rob Wagner had a near perfect score. And Daphne Weisham did so good on why she's unique that she sort of tipped the scale as well. So those are my thoughts. I know that I'm not supposed to vote right now, but I would be happy to support and vote for any of these candidates today. But for right now, Claudia Black is my choice.
Well, I'll go ahead and I heard the phrase that all politics are local and personal, and I think maybe ultimately my choice hangs on that to some degree. I've only very recently have met Ms. Wisham, and I've gotten to know Rob over a couple of different sittings over the last couple of months. But I've known Claudia for a long time, and I think the first time that I met her, I think, was with the Tri-County Safety Net Enterprise, which ultimately was a failed, but I think a gloriously failed enterprise. And I learned a lot about an area that I didn't know a lot about, which is an area of medical services, health insurance, and how our system functions or doesn't function very well from that standpoint. It's just not an area that I thought she was very patient, and I learned an awful lot through her. I've seen her work over the years at the metro level and at the county level in Washington County, and have run into her any number of times when I've made my occasional forays into the state legislature. We really do have an embarrassment of riches. I wouldn't lose a bit of sleep about any of these 3 coming in. There was considerable PCP support from Mr. Wagner, but there was also strength there, I think particularly on the part of Ms. Black. So I thought that was not in my view, that's not determinative who gets number 1, 2, and 3. There certainly was strength among all the candidates, so to some degree I saw that as a little bit of a semi-wash. Again, going back to the local and personal, I have known and been very impressed over the years with Claudia. I also have a lot of friends and have appreciated the support that I have received on the union side, and take that pretty seriously. But I've talked to a couple of highly placed officials, and they assure me that, well, I would say in most cases, but certainly not exclusively, union support went with Rob Wagner. They have no issues and problems with Claudia as well, and she did receive union support as well. So all that, and also I think I'd like to see a woman in the Senate, and I think Claudia is one that's going to shake things up a little bit. I think there could be some shaking up that would be in order there, and so that's where I'll be falling as well.
Well, that first discussion didn't work that well, did it?
I think it's hard for people to talk about.
Who's next? Go ahead.
Well, I wish I could select all three of you because you all bring just such superior experience and depth, but all in such different ways. So this has been a really, really, yeah, the PCPs did way too good of a job. So that is a compliment. I think what I'm looking for is for somebody that can hit the ground running. So what do you have, like a week before you have to start the new job? And obviously, being a county commissioner, I want somebody who understands the needs and the available resources that counties do and don't have, and how all that is interrelated to the state and, more importantly right now, the federal government. I think, being bipartisan and working across the aisle, again, in this climate is absolutely critical. And other areas, I think, Rob, I got to tell you, you are an incredible campaigner. If you have to run, I've never seen anybody campaign as well as you have. So, you've done an incredible, tremendous job. And Daphne, I learned so much from you, and I love that you called out the timber industry, and I'm like, you go, girl. And so, you all just bring so much, and I hope that the other two that don't get selected will continue because you all have so much to offer. So it's going to be a very hard decision for me, but I feel confident in the decision that I've made, and I'll wait to vote.
Go ahead.
So, I don't know how many, thank you, by the way, Commissioner, for saying I'm a mentor. I don't know any other way to handle this than to say, yes, it's a job interview. And it's particularly difficult when you've known people for a short time, but you see how wise and smart and decent and the wonderful environmental needs that you bring to the table that we have to address. I've also known Claudia and Rob for years and years and years. Claudia and I had to work with another Schrader over a helmet bill, I remember once. That was kind of our first meeting together. I don't know if we were successful, but we actually did try very, very hard. And Rob and I spent time in the six-pack together, which was this little area of the House where all the freshman legislators were placed because they were at the bottom of the totem pole, and you were working for Richard at the time? Chris Beck, that's right, he was there too. Chris Beck and Schrader and Gardner and Deckard. So we go back a long way, and I wish that we could have all three of you take this seat, quite frankly. So I'm going to echo the statement that whoever gets this, go fight, win, shake things up. But those who don't get it, please don't stand in the sidelines, because your county needs you, your state needs you, your communities need you. And to have this kind of talent, we are so privileged. And with that, I'm going to hold my vote to the very last. Leave everybody wondering. Okay.
Anybody else? Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a difficult choice, I think, for all of us. These are very wonderful people. They're talented, they're well-educated, they're experienced. How you choose with people like that is very difficult. I know that every one of them has the kind of progressive values that I think just about everybody in this room shares. I've had coffee with just about all of the candidates for all of these, because I like to have a personal conversation with people. And I haven't been disappointed by any one of the three of them. I look for certain things. One of the things that I look for is what organizations support a candidate, and do those organizations reflect values that are important to me? So that is a critical component for me. Are they good at consensus building? I have a sign on my wall in my office that says patience and collaboration. It says that for a reason, because you have to remember that it takes working together, compromising. Some of the most difficult compromises I've had to make as a commissioner are with my fellow liberal commissioners in finding language that is acceptable and will work for all of us. I have a tendency to just want to take the hill and put it where they tell you to. And it doesn't work that way in politics, so you do have to work with your colleagues. I understand the issue of equity is important, but I noticed today there was an incredible outpouring of very broad-based support for one of the candidates in terms of diversity and equity from a wide variety of communities. And that was an important issue to me, because it isn't what you are that is entirely important. It is also what you stand for and who stands for you that is important. So I take that sort of thing into consideration also. I will hold my vote until it's time to vote. I will say this, I believe that 2 of the 3 candidates absolutely hit it out of the park today, and I'm really wrestling very hard with this decision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead, thank you. So thank you to all 3 of you for going through this process. This is just soul trying work to be on this really intense process for the last 3 months that you've been doing it. One of the things I was most looking forward to as a county commissioner was actually going through this process and being able to put good people into the legislature. I didn't really stop to think about what happens when you have multiple really good people that want to get into the legislature. So I appreciate all of you going through this process. I've had a chance to talk to each of you. I think that, and I know Claudia and Rob, I know you personally, have worked with you for years, and so I've also, so I have that, and Daphne, it's been really wonderful getting to know you. I've been so impressed with your passion and commitment and knowledge, especially around climate issues and income inequality, which I think is a huge thing. And for me, just like, Sonia gave an amazing speech, looking at the endorsements, the letters that we get from people, the personal conversations that we have, as well as, taking this process here today incredibly seriously. This has been an incredibly hard decision for me. I think one of the things that was mentioned a little bit here, but I asked each of you about it, and is a very important consideration for me, is how are we going to change the tenor of the Senate? As somebody who was serving in the House, who voted on issues and bills that went and died in the Senate, that's a really important consideration for me. So I will withhold, who I'm going to vote for into the voting process, but I have to say that that was, in addition to all of the other things that I talked about, that was a big consideration for me.
How about anybody on the phone want to make a comment? Okay.
I'll make a comment.
Okay.
This is Bob Terry, and I spent about an hour and a half with each of the candidates, and I asked some rather reverse questions to get a reverse answer, and I was most pleased with Rob Wyatt as he answered most, I believe, most earnestly. Others seem to be a little bit more defensive to what their position is rather than being collaborative. And I think there is some lessons to be learned. As most of you know, a good portion, in fact, 90% of my district is in the rural areas and in the timber country. And I was disappointed in the knowledge of the timber industry by others and not understanding what really takes place in the woods and in the forests other than what is read or put on the news media. So I'm looking forward to casting my ballot, and it'll certainly be for the individual that was most collaborative. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg?
Just wanted to say that, like everyone else has said, 3 very extraordinarily strong candidates. And and you all have different strengths. And if I could clone you all together, I think, you know. It would, but I'm hoping that whoever doesn't get it will consider the fact that there's, I don't know who your House representative is, but if he or she doesn't, you know, is he back here?
We voted on her last time.
Yeah. That, you know, if they're with you, then they're good, and if they're not with you, well, you have some alternatives. No matter what, I'd like to see you all stay involved. One of the issues is also, as was said, input from different organizations, input from different people. My own personal, I've had a chance to work with Claudia in the past. She has, even when she's working for another county, she has been helpful to Washington County. And for dropping someone into the middle of the morass that is Salem with very little time to study for it, she might have some advantages. Rob, you've got a lot of strength, and you've got a lot of agility, and you know a lot of stuff, and you're not afraid to ask questions. And that's something we would need desperately too. And Daphne, I'm quite sure, I'm not going to insult the women on this side of the table, because they're all babies, but, you know, little young people. But for us guys, with this climate change thing, we're still all going to get to die in our beds. And as I look around at some of the young folks that are here, I'm not sure. This thing may ball up on us faster than we think. And I hate to leave that legacy of wondering whether it'll be tribes that we're all living in 100 years. I won't be here to see it, but so each one of your 3 values are just huge. So I just wanted to say thank you for putting yourself out there. It's not any fun. You've done a lot of exercise, and if you have other political aspirations, and you're on your way.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. I want to thank all the candidates for putting your name in the hat today, because you are all outstanding and amazing. And I was thinking about, you know, every time we do one of these, I say, this is it. This is the worst. This is the most, this is the most qualified group we've had yet. And I have to say it, and I know that, that our previous race that we had to do, I said that was the last one, but this is truly a gut-wrenching kind of decision that we have to make on 3 very, very qualified candidates. And when I was listening to you, Daphne, talk about your parents and climate change, what a wonderful gift your parents gave to you and legacy to support the most vulnerable in your community. Like your parents, you could have done anything with your life, with your education and experience. So I just want to thank you for that. And, you know, it is such a rare opportunity, as one of the folks who testified said, to have somebody like Claudia, who has the experience, the background. I don't think anybody knows their way around Salem like she does. I mean, they're second to none to her. And, you know, understanding the working knowledge of anything is always really, really good. And being able to really articulate some of the issues that are the issues of the day, and being very ambitious about supporting a constitutional amendment. I think that is amazing. And then you get to someone who has been in the system as well, who is equally as qualified, like Rob. What an amazing coalition that you brought here around diversity and community of people who live in Senate District 19, and really talking about jobs, diversity, and equity, and ethnic diversity. It was huge. And so it leads me back to my last point. My friend, Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, who is African-American mayor of Gary, Indiana, She has a Harvard undergrad degree and a Harvard law degree. And she came and gave a speech to a group of women that we had together. And she said, look, I've always wanted to be mayor of Gary, Indiana. And I tried twice before. And when people came to me the third time to do it, I said no. And she said, but it wasn't until I figured out something, that it wasn't the Harvard degree that I had, or the fact that I was a judge, or that I was an attorney general, state attorney general. It wasn't until the third time that I ran for mayor, and I told the people who came to me that said, look, I don't have that kind of time because I have to take care of my mother. And my mother was very, very ill, and she didn't have much longer to live. And so I don't have time to be on the campaign trail. And they said, okay, check. I don't have a lot of time to raise a lot of money. They said, okay, fine, check, we got you. And she said, but it wasn't until that third time when I won mayor that I told people what I cared about. It wasn't about the education or the experience. They wanted to know, did you care about the young people in my community? Did you care about the seniors in my community? That's all they really wanted to know. They didn't care about my fancy degrees. They didn't care that I went to college with the Obamas or anything like that. They didn't care about that. And when I talked to them about my mother and how important that was. So I think this is going to come down to identifying a candidate that has the values that you care about and that you really think are important.
I'll just jump in here. I've said this before, because I mean it, and that is that I've always looked at being an employer almost my entire adult life. I've had to hire people, interview people, look at their resumes, interview them, do an assessment, and in a capacity of being an elected official, whether a county commissioner or on special districts, we've appointed people over the years and done the same kind of thing. And I look at people's history and try to derive out of that their passion, basically looking at their resume, where they put their time in. And I value that. I really value people that involve themselves in the community or involve themselves in this particular passion, and the more diverse that is, the more it tells about a person. Last night I spent and read every one of these letters, by the way. And I could see some of the faces in the room that wrote these letters. And I was actually quite impressed and kind of taken aback by some of the comments. I saw some of the dual endorsements. That was great, and I could see why. It is a tough decision. There's 3 very qualified people here today. And so my kudos and admiration for the hard effort you've all done and put in service. And it's going to be a tough call. I'm not really sure where I'm going to end up here, but I will say I've known Claudia for a long time. I've known of Rob and got a chance to meet him and was very impressed. And I just recently met and spoke to Daphne. So I do think they all bring 3 different strengths and qualities. And but for me, all I can say is that the history and that's spelled out here is resembled here in all these comments. Reflected that is I thought was pretty impressive. So congratulations to all your hard efforts and support.
Go ahead.
Hi. So I don't even know what I'm going to say right now, let alone I honestly don't know how I'm going to vote in about however many minutes it is, which is a testament to all of you. I agree with what Commissioner Savas has just said in terms of those different sorts of skill sets and backgrounds that you all bring to this, would bring to this office. And it's one of those things when I talk about our own county commission, I talk about our different skill sets and backgrounds and how they are they're different, but they're all complementary, but we all ultimately share these same values, these core values, and we're marching toward that, which is really remarkable. And so it would be great if you all could be there doing that exact same thing at the Senate. But unfortunately, we're going to have to make a choice. And I just, I mean, so much has been said already about each of you and what phenomenal people you are. Not just in the work that you've done, your accomplishments, and all of the incredible knowledge that you possess, but you're all just really wonderful human beings who care and who do have such integrity and such great values. So makes it tough. I will say that for whoever is not chosen today, I also, in speaking about the running for office thing, I've run for office and I have lost, and I know personally how that feels, but I also know what a remarkable experience it was, even when I have not prevailed, and what incredible relationships I've developed, even during those times that have really been ongoing and very sustaining. And so whatever happens here today, I know we will continue to work together, and I look forward to all of your contributions to our community. So thank you.
Did you just ask a politician whether she wanted to say something? Come on. I will be brief, however. I served in the Oregon legislature, and it's been really hard. I think somebody's already said this because pretty much everything's already been said about how hard this process is choosing someone. It's much, much harder than I ever imagined it would be. And I've seen, working in Salem as a legislator and as a lobbyist and now as a county commissioner, I've seen lots and lots of well-meaning, well-intentioned, smart, capable, lovely people. In fact, probably there's a lot of them in the Oregon legislature right now who can't actually get things done. They can't get the things done that we need them to get done because it is a really, really hard job. You have to be able to push an incredible boulder up a hill, sometimes alone, sometimes by just the sheer strength of your own power, by building coalitions, by doing really whatever it takes to get done. And usually that's kind of how I view when I'm making these choices. I think who is the person here that's not just the one I like the most or who's saying the right things, but the actual person who's going to get something done. And that is not quite so easy this time around. So I know we're not voting yet, so I'm gonna hold back. But really, I think that all three of these candidates are extremely accomplished and have histories of not just being nice people, but actually getting stuff done. So congratulations.
I guess I'm last. So I actually one time, probably, I don't remember what year that was up for an appointment to the Clackamas County Commissioner, and it was down to Martha Schrader and I.
But you're
And
the
two men behind the table said, "Can you imagine if I appointed you?" What all those white-haired ladies would say. Those were the mayors around the county at that time, were all mostly women. And Martha was appointed. I'm thankful that that happened, because I was able to, years later, when we went to 5 commissioners, take a seat at the commission. And I think I was able to move Milwaukee, where I was the mayor, forward. And I would have missed out on all that had I done that. So the one thing that I look to is, of course, the organizations that endorse somebody, the ability to build consensus. I always say I'd never go to the legislature, and I apologize to anyone who's in the legislature, that one thing I'd never give up is my values, even though sometimes I might swear when I shouldn't. It's very difficult to give up something and put your values aside to get a vote on something. And in this job, we don't have to do that. In the legislature, you have to build consensus. You have to find some middle ground that doesn't oppose your values. I think that would be challenging. And I think that all of you could do that. But in the end, you know, it's not going to matter. We do need to clean the air. If we don't, we will be in that. We may not be able to die in our beds. Well, we will die in our beds, but our children may not. But if we don't fix our education system, it's not going to matter anyway, because we have problems with homelessness. Our prisons are overcrowded. We're not providing the educational benefits that everyone deserves from from K to to 12th grade. We're not doing that, and we need to make that a priority. We're also focusing on graduating from college. We ought to be looking at, job skills, job development. I did graduate from college, but I also worked pumping gas and working on cars all my way through college. So that way I was able to leave no debt behind. And the sad part is you can't graduate from college nowadays without massive debt. And hopefully you can get a job. But we need to look at opportunities to develop our skills outside of college as part of it. But also when we get out of college to have an opportunity to get the jobs that we worked hard to pay for, and not have a huge burden of debt behind us. So with that, the only other final thing I'd like to say is that getting appointment on this seat, what's important is that you can be elected, because we need to hold the seat. And I think all of you have worked hard to make sure that you met us all and that you created a team behind you. Finally, I think I said finally on the other one, but we were called up to Sandy to make an appointment for a Republican. And the rumor was we were going to pick the worst person we could find so that we could make sure that they wouldn't be elected. And a lot of us had our minds made up when we went there. But in the end, we did pick the best person. I hope they're the best person. But I thought it was the process is great. And with that, I think it's time to take a poll.
All right. Commissioner Fisher.
Claudia Black.
Commissioner Humbertson.
Rob Wagner.
Okay. Commissioner Malinowski.
Claudia Black.
Commissioner Myron.
Rob Wagner.
Commissioner Rogers.
Rob Wagner.
Commissioner Savas.
Rob Wagner.
Commissioner Skoughton.
Claudia Black.
Commissioner Schrader.
This is one of the tough decisions I've ever had to make. But when I was listening to everyone talk, I was writing down what jumped to my mind and what I value, and it's workforce training, equity, diversity, veterans, education, job creation, houselessness, housing. And I think any candidate, the people that were here today, any one of them could do it, but I'm going to cast my vote for Bob.
All right. Commissioner Smith.
This is a really difficult vote, but I'm going to vote for Rob Wagner.
Commissioner Stegman.
Claudia Black.
Okay. Commissioner Terry.
Rob Wagner.
Okay. Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
I'm going to vote for Claudia Black.
Chair Kavori?
Claudia Black.
And Chair Bernard?
Rob Wagner.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Wagner has received more than the plurality of the votes.
Well, that's the end of my script. I thank everybody for coming today. Pardon?
We have to sign.
Oh, yeah, we have to sign, so don't leave. Thank you guys for coming. I think you're all fantastic. Look forward to getting you down in Salem to do the hard work that needs to be done. Again, thank you very much. With that, we're adjourned.